choosing who to get advice from is very difficult
Mm-hmm.
because many times we want advice to make us feel better.
Yeah.
Not to be better, but to feel better.
You just keep asking people until
That's
you hear
right.
what you want.
Hey, give me advice that solidifies the plans I already had without giving you good information. And then some people will give you advice to their direction, their vision.
Sure.
So I am very diligent about, does this person align with my vision for the organization and myself? And then second, and also as important, are they a strategic thinker?
Welcome to ReedFlections, a podcast on life, leadership, and learning. I'm Art Calderon. I'm here with Reed Nyffeler, a CEO of a global franchising security firm, a husband, a father, an author, a seasoned podcaster. And we're here to, first of all, recap on some of the work we've done recently. We started episodes 1 through 4 here in season 2 about why do we develop leaders? Why are we developing leaders? Then we talked about who you should develop, and currently, what capacities do leaders need? Episodes 10 through 14, nice section we're going through here. We're talking about visioning, strategic planning, financial acumen, team development, and finally, project management. And today, we're talking about strategic planning. Finally, let me ask you this, Reed, to start you off. What is the connection between visioning, this goal, this vision, this long-term, almost intangible thing we call a vision, and the actual strategic planning?
Well, first of all, a vision cannot be accomplished without a strategic plan. And so I see a lot of entrepreneurs, and they might be really good at vision. They have a clear picture of what the future should be. They can visualize it in their minds. They can communicate it and engage audiences and get super excited about it, but they're not leaders because they can't develop a strategic plan. They talk about things for years and decades, and they're super excited about it, but there's really no execution on that.
It's like
And
hoping, I guess.
It's hoping, right? And so the strategic plan is a way to execute the vision. That's essentially how they come together. I also think there's a lot of confusion between a strategic plan and a project.
Okay.
And so let's clarify that. So let's say your vision is to take your family on a vacation and you describe what it's going to be like and all the time we're going to spend together and the beautiful photos we're going to have and all that other stuff. And so I remember when my kids were young and we'd tell them to go on a vacation. And I remember one of my children saying, I'm going to go pack right now. Now, that's a project.
Yeah.
Right, but not a plan.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we want to dive right in that thing. I'm ready for vacation because I packed my suitcase, and now in that suitcase there, may have been 10 swimsuits and no clothes. Okay, well, that you got all the swimsuits because we were going to go swimming, whatever the case might be, but there wasn't enough for that particular day, and so that is like going to pack your suitcase instead of planning the strategic plan, right? And so that is many people begin to do, what can I do right now? Once this vision's crafted, I'm going to go work on a project really quick that makes me feel like I'm closer to my vision, but I'm not. Instead, how should we plan a vacation, right? We say, okay, we want to go to this destination. What days are we going to go? What time of year is it? What clothes? Is it winter? Is it summer? Do I need swimsuits? Do I need coats? Then how long am I going to be there? Do I need 10 outfits or 3 outfits? Right? These are all things in a strategic plan. What am I going to do while I'm there? Am I going skiing and I need ski boots, or am I going, sailing? And so I need, water socks or something. And so we really have the strategic plan about what we're going to do while we're there and ultimately how that's going to go. And then what resources do we need? How much is it going to cost? And so the strategic plan is on the front side saying, I want to go on vacation, and what are the tangible steps? What is that going to look like in order to achieve that vision of going on a vacation, instead of jumping straight to the project and packing a suitcase? So the strategic plan is breaking that vision into essentially structured bite-sized pieces, right, over time. For me, I start with 10 years, 5 years is the most more people can probably think 5 years out, 3 years, 1 year, and then going forward. So that's really how you put a strategic plan, is saying, what's my vision? And then how do I break that down?
And why is it so critical for leaders to make a strategic plan? Why is that something that they just cannot ignore?
Well, it brings clarity to how the vision is achieved, right? And it guides your leader as an organization as your kind of your milestone to come back. And so let's use that vacation analogy, and then I'll give another analogy later in the podcast. But in that vacation analogy, saying, okay, what's next?
Mhm.
Our flight is at this particular date. So now we're like, better go next step. Now it's clarity. We need to go get our tickets, our boarding passes 24 hours in advance, right? And then we need to determine when we're getting in the car to get to that flight on a particular time. So that strategic plan is defined now. We know how we're getting there, a plane, and we know when those things happen, and it provides clarity to all parties. Okay, got to get in the car, and I need to be ready by this time, and ultimately get ready to leave. And so it creates clarity. That strategic plan creates clarity.
Here at your current company, Signal, you've had a lot of plans, a lot of strategic plans over the years. Tell us about a time where you had one of those, you successfully created the vision and implemented the vision, because those are two different things, right? Tell us about time that happened, what made it work, and how did it go?
Well, I'm going to start at the beginning here, because I think many times we forget that the beginning is what drew everybody here to where we're at today. We can get so fixated on what a late stage strategic plan is and what a project might be in our current state, instead of the original vision, right? And if we look at all the relationships or successes we had in life, they didn't necessarily start. I always say people believe an organization starts the day they're born, essentially, or the world starts the day they're born, that nothing happened beforehand. But even today, we can't live in the environment we are now without the predecessors that established the environment we ultimately live in. And so I'd go back to the beginning. And so I remember starting this, and I had just turned 30 years old, and I was kind of, had clarified, or I was honing in on who I wanted to be as a person. And I knew personally, and it wasn't the galvanized statement that I discussed in season 1, but it was clear around, I want to help others achieve their goals in life, basically. And so then I said, okay, in order for them to achieve their goals in life, what do they need to have? Well, they need to have the autonomy. They'll do that within structure, right? And I realized that's franchising. So franchising gives autonomy, meaning you're a business owner, but structure because you're committed to an organization. And then the second part of that is I knew that technology was a driver to accelerated success, right? The more we use technology in every era of life, not necessarily online technology, which is the current state, but any advancement in systems or processes were there. And so I'm saying we need to lean heavily into that. Okay, so that's our pillars of the business that we created, was around franchising and technology being two components that were critical. Then it needs to be universal, transcendent, and eternal. And so in this business, it's around security. So I thought, perfect, franchise ownership and technology can be applied to security. And then I looked at the organization and I said, okay, let's look at global security. Is there any franchisor? No, there's not. There's no franchisor in the world at the time.
So that was kind of revolutionary, right? The idea, hey, let's franchise and let's use technology and security, which security's been around forever.
And so I'm like, okay, why hasn't it been done? Right? I asked that question. Why hasn't it been done? Okay, people aren't willing to get through that. I can do that. I'm not going to quit. And then conversely, would technology advance it? And literally, I remember 17 years ago, and some people that are familiar with security might remember this, but ultimately, how are they managing time? Still managing time on sites. There was this manual clock you could turn and you'd punch it, and it'd be like your time clock when you went into a place. That's how they're punching time. I'm like, there's better ways to do that. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, wow, technology could create tremendous efficiency and accuracy. So now I had my industry, right? And so then that's the vision, saying we are going to revolutionize, create peace of mind in the security industry. Now, how do I develop a strategic plan? And that was the translation of that, saying, okay, it needs to be first, a strategic plan that I built here was first, it has to be better for the customer. Many people say, if I build a business, it's going to be better for me.
Right. What can I get? My profit. What can I get out of it?
Anything. It has to be better for me or I'm not going to do it. Well, guess what? If you don't have anyone else along, it's never going to be better for you. The world, we're not created to operate on our own. And so if it's only better for me, no one cares about a life better for Reed. I'll promise you that. No one cares that Reed has a better life.
Yeah.
They only care about a better life for them, specifically starting with the customers. Why? Because the customers pay your bills as a business, right? So I said, okay, how can I leverage franchise ownership and technology better for the consumer? And so then I realized, all right, first of all, I really understood their needs, budget, and timeline, which was essentially the way they were getting services. And I said, okay, leveraging technology, we can do it in a patrol model. We can go on a shorter period of time with bigger visibility to dispel any security concerns that would dislodge their peace of mind and do that. Perfect. That's better for them, right? It is lower cost, more efficient with better visibility, leveraging technology. Now, how do I make that better for a franchise owner? Why would a business owner want to do that? Then I realized, oh, they'll make money and structure. And then the strategic plan would say, who already understands that? What is a general group of the population understand? Police and military. So then I thought, perfect. The police and military have 20 years in their career. They can typically retire at 20 years or sometimes sooner, sometimes longer. But ultimately now they started at 18, 20 years old. They're 40 years old. They got 20 more years of their career and they have experience protecting and serving, right? Largely their country or their community. So the second component of that strategic plan was franchise owners. And I said, okay, then now they can serve their communities instead of their country. And then the third component of that strategic plan was saying, okay, what are the things that are going to hold them back from being successful long-term? And so I knew that we needed centralized services as a home office. We're the third component of that, right? We have a customer, we have a franchise owner, but I need to have a sustainable and viable model as the franchisor in order to execute on that. So I said, okay, what services can we provide and how can I make sure that we can ensure financial health as the franchisor? And so then as a result, we provide sales support, we provide operational support, we provide administrative support. And so those were all part of a strategic plan that was at its infancy. And it was literally just me initially, right? It was just me starting this franchise organization in the very early stages, brought in one or two people initially, and we built from there. And the vision doesn't have to be huge, right? The vision can be huge, but the strategic plan can start in a process that has the pillars in place that you continue to build and evolve. And so that strategic plan then was employed and we began to recruit the first franchisee. I got the first client really day 2, right? Because I clearly understood what I was approaching. Got the first client day 2, got the first franchisee year 1, about just after the anniversary of year 1. And then ultimately our franchisor began to build and got the first employee through that process as well. So the strategic plan was clearly articulated and then obviously applied financial acumen, which we'll discuss later, to those to make sure it was viable for all parties and then built from there. But it was a strategic plan built on our model that we're living now 17 years later. I purely believe this wholeheartedly, that if I was purely an entrepreneur at the time, that I wanted to create peace of mind and I went and provided services in a project. I got this client taken care of. I got this client taken care of. I got this person taken care of. Without developing a strategic plan, we wouldn't be here. Right. Because I could run around serving every person as one person trying to live out my vision, but I would never be able to bring others into it or make a financially viable business. I believe many, many, many businesses go out of business, not because they're not good at projects. Many of them are really good at projects, and not because those entrepreneurs aren't good at vision. It's because they do not take the time to methodically think through a strategic plan that is viable and long-standing. And as a result, that's what I did at the very beginning before I began to serve a single client.
Now, we've talked a lot about strategic planning, and we've kind of said, well, you said, don't immediately run after goals. Don't just set up goals and ignore your strategic plan. However, goals are important, right? So how do those goals fit into your strategic plan overall?
So in the strategic plan overall, let's take that example I just gave you about our business. So the first thing I needed to say is I need to get a happy customer. That's the first goal. In order to build a strategic, I need a happy customer. And so literally day 2, as I just mentioned, I went to this customer. I said, okay, what are your needs, budget, time? How will you be happy? So I got a single one. Then I said, okay, I need enough happy customers to fill a vehicle. Because I can't sell a franchise, one customer, the particular customer, a single location, and that was $500 a month. No business will be built off of or be viable at $500 a month. Right. Now, in their case, they had 27 locations, so that was $13,500. So I needed to fill a vehicle. Now, by happenstance, I filled that vehicle, $13,000. We want a vehicle filled about $15,000 to $20,000 in monthly revenue.
And we're talking about patrols, physical patrols. Right. So we say fill a vehicle, we mean the patrol, the vehicle is maxed out in the amount of revenue.
Right, so they can hit enough locations to justify the officer that's working there. So then I said, okay, I satisfy the needs of a client. Then I fill a vehicle. That was my next goal, to then show a franchise owner ultimately how to fill a vehicle. And then I knew that 2 to 3 vehicles would be a sustainable income for them, that they could live off of that in perpetuity. And so I said, how do I get 3 vehicles? And so then that was the next milestone goal, is saying, okay, now I need 3 vehicles filled. Then I could sell franchises. A year later, here's how you build a business. You go you satisfy a client, you fill a vehicle, you make that vehicle 3 vehicles at this margin in this process, and then I could sell a franchise, right? Then I sold that franchise was the next goal. And then from the next goal was saying, I need 20 franchise owners. Typically, a franchise owner needs about 20 franchise owners for diversity of revenue, diversity of income in order to support the franchisor. So then the focus was to get 20 healthy performing franchise owners. That was the next milestone of the business. And those are intermediate goals that were all tied to the strategic plan I unfolded previously.
And they all built on each other.
They built on each other very sequentially in accordance with the strategic plan.
All right. So talk about some practical tips for leaders who need to create a strategic plan and then operational. Just don't create it and keep it in your head, or even don't just communicate it, but how do they operationalize that plan?
So just as I gave you that example, we start with a vision, that vision's an end, and then we run back to the beginning, just like I gave in the vacation analysis, right? Is like, I want to be here and enjoy our vacation and share the pictures with the family, but I'm going to go pack my suitcase. So we have to practically be so committed with the end result, we start backwards and don't fall to the trap of packing your suitcase or starting with the next project right in front of you. And so if you have a vision and it's super clear, work your way backwards. When do you foresee that vision? In our case, the objective, the process for that is going to be the world's largest security company. So then I work my way backwards. That was day one, my thought, right? I literally looked at all the competitors.
Day one was your thought to be the world's largest security company.
And you may not know this about me, Art, but I don't commit to something to be the worst. You know what I mean? Right. I don't commit to something to be last place. I mean, that might be something you aspire to.
Be the most average.
I want to be the most average, and honestly, not a lot of people like that. I don't know. Maybe there's a group. Or I want to be the worst, and so ultimately, if you're going to do something, do it well. That's just where I'm at. And so what does doing well look like? That means you're universally applicable. Then if you are the best, why wouldn't everyone want to use you? So assuming that's the case, that we wanted to be the best, I said, what would be the best? What does the best look like? Right? And generally, these principles are transferable. The companies that succeed are the ones that save people time, money, energy, and ultimately they give them autonomy, right? And so ultimately, what are those components of? Peace of mind, right? That gives us essentially peace of mind. So I said, okay, how can I save them time, right? Technology. How can I save them energy? Patrol, because they're, that's a solution to that. Ultimately, autonomy, franchise ownership, all those are components that are there. And so that then said, okay, these are the pillars I need, which I just described. And then how do I put a strategic plan together? So how can you practically do that? Saying, okay, as your business, as your vision is there, and you clarified what you're trying to achieve, the strategic plan is saying, what are the components of that? Right? For me, it was patrol and franchise ownership and otherwise. But what are the key components that will never change? The less they change as a result. I'll give an example. Howard Schultz created Starbucks. Okay. And so he said, you know what? I want to proliferate coffee everywhere, and I want to do so around an environment, right? And it's more of, instead of a drink you consume, which is what it was before he really commercialized it. He's saying, I want this to be a lifestyle you live. And that was him. And so everything around Starbucks, from the music they choose to the designs on the cups they have to the locations they put them in, is all around infusing coffee into a lifestyle environment, right? You see people that carry that brand because it's a lifestyle instead of a drink they consume. And so his decisions were around that. So his strategic plan became clear. Where do we want this lifestyle to be embodied? They started in big downtown cities. How do you structure that? Okay, we're going to give them the opportunity to sit in there with comfortable chairs and music that'll be an ambient that'll be there with Wi-Fi. They were early business that had Wi-Fi everywhere, so you'd spend time sitting in there. All their strategic planning was around that clear vision. And then we're going to make sure the drinks are there. We're going to personalize your name on the outside of the cup, right? I mean, everything was about creating that environment, and the strategic planning just built on top of that. And it became super clear for them. And so in that case, the vision, and then what is the structure necessary to do that? And then how do I build a plan to achieve that structure? And that's really a practical sense, saying, okay, what structure is necessary to achieve that strategic plan, and what components do I need to have, and sequentially doing so.
How often do you create a strategic plan? Is it just a one-time thing, and then we just run with it for the next 17, 20 years? Or do you review it? Do you reflect on it? Do you ever adjust it? What does that look like?
Yeah, so for me personally, I can't sleep, honestly, if I have a vision without a plan. And, my wife said, you're a planner. And the problem with your plans, they become a reality. But nonetheless, right as I have a vision, I literally have to run it through a filter of the strategic plan, because otherwise then it gives me the ability to let that vision go. And how many of us sit in there and we're like, I have a vision for my life, but I don't have a plan. And so I just constantly live in this state of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't see it come together. I'm not making any progress. So for me, I am either going to see a path towards or forget the vision.
Hmm.
And there's been visions I've had about smaller, innocuous things that I let run off because the plan wasn't, viable, really, honestly. And I didn't put myself through the torture of trying to accomplish a vision without a viable plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I developed that strategic plan immediately. And then it gives me the ability to let go of that vision and pursue a new one or execute on it. And then once that plan comes in, I can decide if I can execute or want to execute on that. And it may not be ready right now. It may not be the time to do it right now. And so that's all part of that as well. So I develop it immediately. And then the more important question is, how do I review that?
Right.
And so then once I develop it immediately and I have a plan, I break that down into 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, and then goals. And if, again, you either read the book, it'll break that down very sequentially. How do you implement and review a strategic plan and ultimately migrates into project management? And then 2, how do you develop that, right? And so I have a 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, annual, right? Annual. And that's kind of where I review that annually. And then back to that vision trip, I clarify the vision. I then dust off that strategic plan and say, okay, on all the projects and teams that I have and financials that we have now, dust off that strategic plan. What needs to adjust, right? Because the vision and the structure are still there. The components, patrol, dedicated services for a franchise business with technology, those are all the pillars are still there. But the plan to employ those may evolve because new information is always coming and our ability to execute on that evolves. So for me, to that end, I dust it off, look at the 5-year and 1-year and say, okay, what is relevant here to then break down the financial acumen, team development, and project management from there. So I would say you at least annually, if not quarterly, somewhere between annually and quarterly should look at your strategic plan and make sure that you're making progress towards your vision with that plan. And if not, adjust. Because if you are making progress, great, accelerate. If you're not making any progress or the progress you hope to achieve, adjust. And that's really that 1-year and quarterly to answer your question directly.
All right. So annually, you review it, you dust it off, you take a look at it. At what point, or do you involve other leaders in your team? Do you involve them in looking at that as well?
Yeah. And so I think choosing who to get advice from is very difficult because many times we want advice to make us feel better.
Yeah.
Not to be better, but to feel better.
You just keep asking people until
That's
you hear
right.
what you want.
Hey, give me advice that solidifies the plans I already had without giving you good information. And then some people will give you advice to their direction, their vision.
Sure.
So I am very diligent about, does this person align with my vision for the organization and myself? And then second, and also as important, are they a strategic thinker? Because if I'm asking someone that's not a strategic thinker of an idea, right? If I ask my child, hey, how should we plan the vacation? They're going to go pack.
Right.
Now, again, that also happens in organizations. So many times, those aren't people in our closest proximity. Then around that plan, do they offer something that I don't already have? I don't need 10 people that can operate X, Y, and Z. I need 10 different people that can operate 10 different things. So then that strategic plan, what am I missing? And so again, I'll give something existing. Now we're advancing or accelerating our technology. I don't have a comprehensive understanding of technology.
Right.
Certainly the metrics and underlying components or even how to program a technology platform. So I, in my strategic plan, am seeking out and have sought out key advisors that understand technology, how it's been deployed in other organizations, and can strategically structure technology within our organization as we make advancements on our process. So to answer the question directly, it would be consult with people that have a gap that I don't understand, that are very diligent and experts in that particular field and have had success doing it before. Right? We don't want to take advice from people that have never done it before because merely they're trying with your time, money, and effort and credibility, quite frankly. And so that's where I seek those who have been there before that are aligned with the vision to build a strategic plan and gaps that I currently don't have filled.
Right. So you got to have a little self-awareness. Know what are some things that I need help with that I don't know about. And in your case, you talk about technology and find people to fill that.
That's exactly right.
All right. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you very much, folks. We reached the end of our time here on episode 11, Strategic Planning. Thank you, Reed, for sharing your time and knowledge with us. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate you joining us. Next time, episode 12, Financial Acumen. Sounds a little ominous, but it's not. It's not. It's learning about money and how to use money and what it can do. Financial acumen, spreadsheets, and so forth. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, I'm Art Calderon, and be purposeful.
For the last word, if you are someone that has a vision, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're someone that always has big dreams and you never see them realized, you are not a leader because you do not develop a strategic plan. Do not torture yourself with a vision or a dream that you just, for decades in some cases, talk about and never put tangible strategic plan process together. Sit down today and look at what structure would be required to achieve the strategic plan, and then craft an initial plan. It'll give you so much energy to see, one, is this executable? Or two, have I been wasting the last 10 years of my life thinking about something that was never viable? Today, write down your vision, look at the structure of it all, and then develop a plan. From there, it will give you and your team clarity on what to do next. I look forward to hearing about your strategic plans so that you truly can change your world through your vision and a plan. Good luck.